The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra Bisquenet, and I believe everyone has a story to tell. What's yours?
I'm Deborah Monk, empowering you to find your creative voice.
And on today's show, we actually have two guests. We have Rick Peoples and Martha Polley here to talk about the process of turning a novel into an audiobook. Rick is the author of Hey Ma, Your Husband's Dead, and Martha is the voice that brought the book to life. So welcome.
Thanks.
Nice to have you on.
Thank you.
Rick was born, I am going to read your bio because this cracks me up. Rick was born to the only poor family living in an affluent town on the North Shore of Boston, Massachusetts. He is an accomplished human resources professional and performance coach, and a less accomplished designer, actor, and internet-ordained minister.
That's so funny.
Isn't it funny?
That's so funny. You should read that next week, too.
I should, Jonathan. Let's make a
and
note.
the week after, along with my webpage.
Exactly. We'll keep promoting Rick here.
Keep promoting
We
Rick.
love Rick.
Let's
Here's
promote
another
Martha.
$20.
Yeah.
Martha is a voiceover actor who, thanks to her own home studio, is able to bring characters to life vocally for a living. She has recorded phone prompts and instructional e-learning videos for corporate America. She is a trained stage actor and an accomplished singer. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so glad
This
to
is going to
be
be
here.
fun.
So, Rick, what made you decide to put your book out as an audiobook?
You know, I haven't a clue, to be perfectly honest with you. I sat down and...
Sounds like a good idea.
We belong to the writing group. As you know, I belong to a writing group with Deb.
That's
and
the other writing group.
The other writing group, which shall not be named in the studio.
I
There's
name you
two.
both.
I
Two.
didn't know. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
But so, Deb comes in and she's got all these creative ideas of how she's going to take, a chair and an ashtray and turn it into a book about women and feelings.
With a matching bracelet.
With a matching bracelet. And she's always got the sidebar stuff to talk and sell. And you always don't feel as though you're working as hard as Deb because she constantly is coming up with all these incredible things to go with.
Yep.
I will say they make me feel so good that they'll say, well, what else have you got? And I will actually have more stuff in my bag, and I try not to show it.
It's kind of like a trunk. She comes out.
Yes.
Like Mary Poppins.
God bless you, Mr.
Yes.
Jonathan, because I can only imagine.
Yes.
Oh, please.
And I know I wrote the first
Deb,
season.
pull your mic away from your mouth. I'm trying to give you a hand signal over here.
Oh,
Thanks.
all righty. Anyway, so
All right,
back to Rick.
Yes. So the audiobook.
So getting in there and,
Yeah.
and seeing what she did, and I'm always trying to figure out what else can I do just to even catch up
Right.
to whatever other people
Right.
are doing. And we've got one person who's really great at marketing, and he's doing a great job, and I feel like a complete incompetent when that comes done. So then I started thinking, okay, what else can I do that they haven't done yet to try to figure out, something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing a little bit of research on the audiobook market. When I first started off in work, I would, get these audio tapes, and when I was, had my territory up and down the East Coast, I'd pop in an audiobook and listen to an abridged version of something. Mm-hmm. So then I started doing some research, and audiobooks really are growing incredibly over the U.S. It's like over $1 billion business in the U.S., and it's one of the few businesses that have double-digit growth year over year for the past 5 years.
Wow,
I didn't know it was
this
that
is
big.
interesting.
So it's getting huge.
Yeah,
so
it
we're
is
trying to figure out how do you jump in on that and make it worthwhile. So I'm driving home and just thinking, okay, maybe I'll do an audiobook. So that just popped in my head, wrote it in my little notebook of things to do, and I just started looking into research and trying to figure out how to put an audiobook together. And of course, it's overwhelming because there isn't one place you can go to get the information.
Right.
So did a little bit of research. You can certainly go out and look for actors
Yep.
that are going to go out and narrate. But the thought of getting the guy that did the Harry Potter books, Jim Dale,
Oh, yeah.
or
Was
James
he
Earl
available?
Jones. He wasn't. Well, he was, but it wasn't in my budget, which was a little bit of the problem.
Imagine that.
I feel very honored.
So you were number 2.
I was number 2.
Yeah, let's go with that. She was number 2.
No, honestly, how did you find Martha?
Well, Martha and I have known each other for more years than either one of us can
No,
imagine.
we're not going to say.
And while she didn't know that I was working on a book, and at the same time, I didn't know that she was taking classes on how to be a voiceover actor.
That is so strange, and it's the truth.
So
Absolutely the truth.
we were just kind of, I called her up one day and said, listen, I just finished a book.
Yeah.
What do you mean you wrote a book? How come you didn't tell me you wrote a book? And
Because guess what I'm doing?
guess what I'm doing?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then we just decided at that point that is what I wanted to do with the voice for the show. But when you're an author and you're trying to figure out what to do with your book, you've got to really spend time auditioning people and kind of getting a feel. So just as you spend all that time figuring out what type of font you want and what's the format and all the time we spend on the cover,
Yeah.
you go through almost the exact same amount of pain
Trying to find
the person who's gonna do your voice.
Right, because your book really is from a woman's perspective, and so I think it would have been a little weird to hear it from James Earl Jones.
Well, yeah.
Then again,
but he
you would have
sells,
taken
so
him.
you would have taken him.
I think he would have been fabulous.
Yeah.
Especially on that wonderful chapter,
Yes.
The War to End All Wars.
So,
But anyway,
Martha, in the book, I do drop a couple of swear words on occasion.
yes.
Martha, who doesn't swear, it's not in her vernacular.
No, at all.
Was
But that's okay.
downstairs
She's
in her
playing
home
a
studio.
character.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So
But
that's not her.
when you explain that to her family, why she's down in the basement
Right.
in her studio,
Swearing
like a sailor on leave,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
it was pretty entertaining.
It was actually just a normal day in my house. No one even noticed. They figured something happened with the laundry or something like that.
So then does she, and I kind of know the answer, but for our listeners, does she then send you samples? Does she just do the whole book for you at once?
Well, again, I think it really depends upon the contract you want in the very beginning. So one of the things that Martha and I worked out immediately from front was I just wanted to get the tone. I knew that she could do it vocally, but we needed to set the tone. So she sent me several versions of the first chapter.
Okay.
And when you say that, what does that mean, Martha? Does that mean you use different voices, different inflections?
I did not use voices. I used tones. So, because there's many places in this book where more than one person is speaking. There's arguments among 4 or 5 people. And I didn't do different voices, but I did it in such a way that I truly believe you can tell there's different people talking.
Got it.
So that's interesting. So in a dialogue, you're not changing voices
No, it
with
was more of
character,
a
but it
tone.
is more tone.
And well, that's me. Some
Yes,
people do
right.
voices. I didn't. I decided to do this from, even though it's a woman's voice, I did this from Rick's perspective. I channeled him.
You channeled Rick.
Channeled Rick. And
What does that mean?
well, it was his story to tell, even though it was Beatrice's story to tell. And I felt like I told it through Rick until the last chapter was all Beatrice.
Wow.
So give us just a little synopsis for people that maybe haven't read the book, who Beatrice is, and sort of that, because that will help with the discussion,
Right.
I think.
Sure.
No.
Well, the book focuses in around a family, a woman by the name of Beatrice and her adult children. And Beatrice lives in a very small house by a pond where she's been living very tranquilly for the past 20 years.
Yep.
She gets a phone call to announce that her second husband, who she hasn't heard from in a long time but is never divorced, she threw him out of the house years ago and she's never heard from him, he's finally dropped dead. And everybody's all excited about it until she realizes because they've never divorced, it's going to be up to
messy.
her
Yeah.
and her adult children to pick up his final mess. So the story is about the process of them picking up and settling his meager estate, at the same time flashing back to some of the chaos that he brought into their lives when he first showed up.
Gotcha.
When we started doing the audition piece, Martha and I worked out up front that I wasn't going to give her feedback on every line or every chapter, so I just wanted her to kind of get a vocal quality. When someone comes out of training immediately, you guys know from dance, you want to be absolutely perfect. You don't really spend a lot of time with interpretation because you want to be spot on. And from when you go to a voiceover class, you're classically trained very much like what I would joke around as the stewardess mentality. Where over here, put this on your mask, put the mask on. It's very kind of sing-songy, monotony type of stuff. And Martha gave me the first very professional sounding chapter.
Very professional.
And it didn't fit
Yeah.
the book.
The book, right.
So we did 3 or 4, 10, 15, whatever it was. And after that,
30.
I just said, go, and let me know when you're done.
Well, he wanted me to go with it. And that was, I said, I've read the book, and if I go with this, it will be insane. So there has to be some limits, but he didn't give me any. He said, just do it. And so I recklessly did the first chapter. I sent it to you, and I get a text, I love it. So there we go. So I went from there. And each chapter was different. It wasn't, there wasn't the same tone throughout, because he was going from 1970-something to present time. He was a mature man. He was a boy. Beatrice was divorced. Beatrice was now an elderly woman, happy with her family. So you couldn't do the same tone throughout. There were times where it had to be intense, and there were times it had to be slow.
Yeah.
And then there were times you had to just get through the words, because it was a very long book. It ended up being, it was 9.5 hours on audio.
Wow.
Now, in all fairness, most audio. So when we first, when I first started doing audiobooks in the car, they were always abridged. So you never really got the full. You never got the full book. You always got portions of the book.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And that's totally flipped around now, because an average audiobook is somewhere around 9 hours. So
Yes, a
it
lot of
wasn't
them
too
are.
crazy. So if you're looking to audition actors and try to figure out where do you find them, there are places like voices.com, ACX through Amazon is another place where you can go and you can get different actors to do your books. It averages in price anywhere between I want to say they do anywhere between like $150 to $500 an hour for an actor to do your book. And that's provided that they're going to do the full experience. So I've lucked out with Martha because she recorded the book. And the dollar amount I charged you was for a finished recorded hour. So it may take Martha 3 hours to read the book.
Right.
And then when she goes in and she starts doing her sound engineering on herself and adding and making sure there aren't any burps, or making sure that there isn't the dog barking in the background, or the tone is consistent through the whole book, then we get the 1 hour worth of stuff. So that's what typically you're charged for, is the hour of finished product. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. And then, Martha, what do you do with that finished product? Then where does it go?
So I record. Then I go through and I do the editing, like he was saying. And then there's the producing of it and putting it into an ACX approved format. And that's what takes a lot of time. You have to go through a few processes. It's like a 3-step, and you take that sound and you change it and you do some formatting to it, and then it says, bing, ACX approved.
ACX is owned by Amazon.
Right.
It's one of the largest audiobook distributors.
Right.
So, depending upon the deal that you go with them, you can certainly go there and they could produce it for you.
Yeah, they can
find
do
the
that
actor,
for you.
They can do all the production for you. They can do all the distribution for you. And, it's all in against your royalties.
Right. Okay.
So the more they do, the less royalty you get.
See, I do it all. I do it from soup to nuts. You give me the book, I send you a book back. All done.
And what those guidelines are for are so that if you're listening to one book on your, there's several apps you can get for your phone to be able to listen to audiobooks. You're listening to one book, and then you go to the next book. That one's not recorded in a whisper. And then you go to the next book, and you're blasting your speakers out. Okay. So they have, it's called LUFS. They have this LUFS scale where you've got to be able to fit the volume and the breadth of the work into this channel so that all the books sound relatively the same across the platform.
Exactly. And it has to be submitted in an MP3 format. So that's something you take. I do my recording and I have to transfer it into an MP3, which is each chapter has to be its own MP3. And so he received a gigantic file of 26 MP3s?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
are you, Martha, if we were to listen to the book, would you sound like you sound now?
No.
I should have brought Rick's book with me.
No, you would recognize me. I mean, I have a friend who actually bought the book, and she texted me, "You're keeping me company driving back and forth to work."
So
this
if
is
you
hilarious.
Knew you would know.
She knew it was me, and I have a Boston accent. So
as does the
when
character.
I'm recording, the accent's there. I mean, I promote myself and I put it right out there. I'm from Boston. I was trained at one time and I lost it, but it's back.
Yeah.
And and there are a lot of people that want that. But when I'm
Right.
recording, I'm more precise, and I am a stickler for myself. I'll go back and listen, and if I don't like it, I redo it.
And if I don't like it, she'll redo it.
And if you
Right.
don't like it, yeah.
Right. And sometimes words
No, that's
swirl
okay.
together, and you don't realize they've swirled together, and you fix it, and it's it's easy to fix. But no, you would recognize me.
Isn't it roughly 10,000 words equals about an hour of recorded finished audio?
I'm
Is
not
that-
positive of that number, but it sounds really good, so we're going to say yes.
All right.
Yes.
I only know because we're working on a project here at the studio very similar to that, and that was the figure that I was given.
It makes sense because his was about 90,000, and
Little
that
over
was
90.
9 hours. Yeah, so
Okay.
that makes perfect sense. But yeah, it's I enjoy it. It's performing,
Yeah.
and I
Are there
needed
certain
to perform.
projects that you look for? Like,
Oh,
have
I
you-
love things. Well, his book was wonderful.
Yeah.
His book was wonderful.
Good
and
cover.
Thank you very much.
Great cover.
I really would love to do short stories because I think a short stories would be awesome to be able to bring different personality into one audiobook. Children's books I would love to do. I would love to try to work on doing characters for someone. Being an actress, that would be wonderful.
Right.
I've done some audition pieces. I did a pirate voice. I didn't get it. But my son was hysterical again when my son lived with us at the beginning of all of this. He'd be in the other room and he heard, "Hey, matey," and he's laughing. He's going, "Mom, what are you doing now?"
I'm drinking rum in the basement again.
Yes, Mommy, I'm done swearing and now I'm a pirate. And, it's all those personalities, all those voices in my head. They're all coming
That's
out
why they
now.
all get to
Yes.
come out in your
Yes.
work.
Do you have a
gosh.
standard fee that you charge? Is it by the hour?
I work it out
project?
with each person. It depends. An audiobook is very different than, say, voiceover for a telephone or something from a corporate companies. They will advertise what they're willing to pay. Very simply, I'm on voices.com. If someone comes on voices.com and they're searching for someone, they will see my credentials. They'll hear my demos. And that they then decide what they are willing to pay me, and we negotiate. So there's really no set price. It's what they're willing to pay. Sometimes these high school bands want someone to do voiceover for inspirational things. They're not paying a lot. I still apply for those because my attitude is I want my voice out there. I want people to hear me because all it takes is one person to say, "Ooh, I like that."
Right. Let me go find her.
Right.
Right.
And I think the key thing is that with all of this stuff, it is all negotiable. So you can kind of figure
There's
out
some
there
wiggle
are
room.
ways that you can go and
Absolutely.
you can find a voice actor that may not have all the equipment that they need. And you can hire a sound engineer. And for an additional amount of money, they can go out and do it. Or you can find someone that can do it all for you. And it really kind of varies, we kind of work out up front as, what's the tone you want for your book? What's the tone you want for, do you want characters? Do you want voices? Do you want a tone? How often do you want to follow up to make sure things are progressing the way you want it to progress? Because it's very difficult because you're handing your book over to someone
Right.
and you say, go. So you have to make sure you trust the individual completely in order to, to take it to the next level. And then, of course, there's the whole mess because the book cover that you've designed to go out on Amazon cannot be used for ACX because of the format. So you have to
kidding. You have to do a
separate cover. So you kind of take the best of
Oh,
it,
but
but
I
it's
love your
very much.
cover.
Well, I used it.
Okay.
Ish. I used it ish. But we had to modify it because it's like the old CD cases where it had to be a 4x4
Okay.
JPEG. So
And I got added to it,
yeah, and then I put Martha on
Right.
the
and put
cover.
Martha
which
on,
was the
right.
most important part. My
So
name
what
From
is
her
the next-
perspective.
What is the next step for you? It's up?
It's
or-
up, so I just have to
Yes.
start advertising, which is always a challenge for me.
Yeah. So where do people find it?
You can find it on audible.com. So
Okay.
if you have a subscription, you certainly can get there and just put it into your list. It's also on iTunes. You can buy it right out from Audible if you choose to do so. But those are the two places right now, and I have a sample on my webpage.
So that's
Amazon.
Rick Peoples.
You can find it
Amazon,
on
yeah.
Amazon.
Hey Ma, your husband's dead.
Hey, Ma, your husband's dead.
All right. And Martha, where do people find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, and on Facebook are all my links to everything.
Okay.
I do have a website, and it is through the school that I trained in, which is Such a Voice. and it's an online out of Vermont. They are an online program they choose the people that they will train. You go to something and they choose you, and if you get accepted, you're in their program. Okay. And that's what I did. So they create a website for you to use, and it is suchavoice.com/mpolley. And if you go on there, my demos are there. There's a little information. His book is there. Yes, a shout out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. And you can email me at marthapolley5@gmail.com. So you can find me all kinds of places. Facebook is probably the easiest. If you just Google Martha Polley, I'll come up, and all my little links are there.
Okay.
Perfect.
Any advice to other authors out there on this process?
I think part of it is it's always overwhelming when you start a new process,
right?
So
especially when you think you're kind of done.
Well, you think you're done, but I mean, again, we talked about it, and you guys, you've had show after show about the whole process and what it takes to get down, write a book, have a finished product. Then you go through the editing and editing and editing, and then all that other stuff that goes with it. And you think you're done, and the marketing starts, and then you start crying, and you start all over again.
And you never stop.
And this is kind of the same type of process. Okay. I'd recommend anyone that's new or just trying to try out, I would recommend look at ACX, because I think that's the way to go. It is really as simple as possible. You can get them to do everything, or you can look up Voices. Martha's listed on ACX.
I'm on ACX as well, and Voices.com.
They have all sorts of job aids and infographics to kind of walk you through the process. They've made it as simplistic as possible to get it up and running. So I say go for it, But again, plan.
Awesome.
Yeah, Shelley will probably be doing this next.
I know. Well, Martha and Rick, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, you're so
Thanks
welcome.
for having us.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for listening, and be sure to check out the Writer's Block NH Facebook and the Writer's Block podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. If you'd like to hang out with Martha and Rick again, or share this episode with a friend, head on over to the UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. That's UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. Thank you for listening, and we hope to inspire and empower you to tell your own story.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.